Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another book video. Today's video is going to be my June reading wrap-up video, talking about all the books that I read in June. I'm trying to pull up my Goodreads. I had a pretty good reading month last month. I didn't read a ton of books, but I had a few 5-star reads, a few books that I really thoroughly enjoyed that I'm excited to talk about. But overall, I definitely read less last month than I usually do. I've had like a big slowdown in reading recently. I used to just like crush books like crazy, and to some of you guys, it still looks like I still do. I remember last year I had like a few months where I was reading like 20 books a month, which is just crazy. Must have not really had a lot going on during those months, but these last couple of months, it's been like the fewest amount of books I've read in a long time. Starting off, the very first book I read this month was Hidden Pictures. This was kind of like a mystery thriller type of book. I do not recommend this one on audio because there are actual pictures in this book, like drawings. So this is one that I would recommend actually visually reading. And I actually started it on audio. As I was listening to it, I was like, something's missing. So I ended up downloading it from Libby. I'm so glad I did because the pictures like are so important to the story. This one is about a girl who just recently got out of rehab, and she ends up getting this nannying job for this like pretty wealthy family for, I think, just like a summer nanny job or something for this little boy who's I think like 5. But this little boy keeps drawing all of these really like suspicious, creepy photos of like a girl being dragged through the woods or like a girl being buried in the woods. And this nanny is like totally freaked out, and she is like, what is with this kid? Things start getting like increasingly like creepy and weird. I don't want to give too much away or like talk too much about it because the plot twist in here, like I feel like I was caught off guard a few times during this book where I was like, whoa, I did not see that coming on like multiple levels. I did really like this one. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. It's kind of rare that I rate a thriller anything over like a 3. So I feel like it's a pretty good rating. And then after that, I actually listened to Lessons in Chemistry, which has been on my TBR for so long because I see so many people rave about this book. But honestly, every time I read like the blurb or the synopsis or I heard somebody talk about it, I was like, that book sounds boring. And like, I just didn't really want to read it. But I had put it on hold on my Libby app as an audiobook, and it finally was my turn. So I was like, let's just listen to it and see. And I loved it. This was a 5-star read for me. I loved every moment of this book, which if you don't know what this book is about, I'm gonna try to explain it and give a synopsis, but like just keep in mind that even if it might sound boring, it's not boring and it is so worth the read. And I also just learned that they are making this into I think it's a mini series, like they're making it into a TV show, and I'm pretty sure it's Brie Larson is playing Elizabeth Zott, who is the main character of this book. I watched the trailer and I had chills. I was like, oh my god, this show is gonna be amazing. If the show's coming out or the movie is coming out, you've got to read the book first, and it really was like a fantastic book. Anyway, the book is about Elizabeth Zott, who is a female scientist in the 1960s. She's a chemist. It's a book following her in her life and her career, where she is just absolutely struggling to be taken seriously as a woman in science during that time period. It was so interesting to read about the time period and like the whole setting of everything. She ends up having her own cooking show that she kind of like falls into this role of hosting a cooking show, but it's like a cooking show but make it science. Like she does not give into what this TV studio wants her to do, to basically be like an everyday housewife who is like cute and cheery or whatever. She's just like, I'm not gonna do it. She takes her cooking show and she makes it science. She wears her lab coat. She uses science terms, and it is just like such a hit. Everybody loves her. And yeah, just getting to like watch her success and like her like not giving into what anybody wants her to do, it was just so great. You also just kind of got multiple point of views throughout this book also, including her dogs, which something about getting the animal's point of view in a book, I love that. Like Remarkably Bright Creatures, when you get the octopus point of view. I loved it. I loved it. It was a 5-star. It lived up to the hype for sure. After that, I read the 3rd book in the Eden series, Garnet Flats. This one is about Talia. She's one of the Eden sisters. This one was a little different than the first two. It still had like the small town vibes to it, but her love interest in this story, Foster Madden, is a boxer, I think, or like an MMA fighter or something, and it was their second chance romance. Overall, I thought it was pretty good. I gave it a 3 out of 5. It wasn't my favorite in the series, but like Devin Perry is just a really good writer, so I was still very entertained throughout the book. But I felt like this man needed to do way more groveling. Like, he was just so easily forgiven, and I would have liked to see him suffer a little bit more. That's one of my complaints for sure. After that, I had another 5-star read, which I was not expecting. I can't remember who recommended this book to me, and I had just kind of like offhandedly put it on my Libby. This is another one that I was just not very excited to read, but ended up loving. So I need to like keep that in mind. The books that I don't want to read are usually the ones that I end up obsessed with. I'm trying to keep a more open mind about stuff like that. Anyway, I don't know if I said it, but this was Happiness for Beginners by Catherine Center. This book was just so good. I think it was the writing, because now I've read a few books by Catherine Center and I am just obsessed with her as an author. I think that her writing works really well for me. This one also is being made into a movie, I think, on Netflix, which I'm really excited to see, although the casting is not what I had in my head, but still looking forward to watching it. This is about a girl named Helen who is 32 and recently divorced. Her life is kind of in shambles and she's like not doing so great, and she decides to go on this like really intense hiking retreat type of thing. I think it's like 3 or 4 weeks of like hiking and like living off the grid, and it's like really intensive, and it's supposed to be this like really intense thing, like helps you change and grow and like get to know yourself and whatever. So she's like, sign me up, I want to do that. When she gets there, she realizes that her little brother's annoying friend is also in this same group of people who is going on this intense hiking trip type of thing, and he's a little bit younger than her. He's always been her like brother's best friend growing up, so she's always thought of him as this like young annoying little brother type of person. But meanwhile, he has been in love with her like his whole life. She has always been like his brother's cute older sister that he's always had this massive crush on, and now they are like trapped in the wilderness together on this hike. So it's like a romance between them, but the story is like mostly about her and all of her personal growth on this trip. I just like loved her as a character. I felt like she was so relatable, and even though like so much of her was really annoying, but she was just a very, very realistic character that you could absolutely understand everything that she was doing, even though it was annoying. Or like maybe that's just me, like I could totally relate to her and all of the issues that she was having, and it was just so good. The romance was good, the personal growth was good, like it was just like I couldn't put it down. I loved it. Now after reading like a few of Catherine Center's books also, I feel like she writes these like pretty realistic men who are like not the perfect book boyfriend that you read about who like always do and say the right thing, you know? Like her characters are like, they have so much depth and like real characteristics, and they're not perfect, but you still really love them. I highly recommend. The cover on Goodreads is just like not cute. I think they've given it new covers since it's getting a movie made out of it, but really love that one. Definitely add that one to your TBR. After that, I read Same Time Next Summer. This is by the same author who wrote Nora Goes Off Script, which was one of my 5-star favorite reads last year in 2022. So I was really excited to read this one, another book by her. It was still really good. I still enjoyed it. It was a very fast, like sweet read, but it definitely did not have like the 5-star feeling or like the 5-star charm of Nora Goes Off Script. So yeah, this was just like a 3 out of 5 for me, but it was good. It's a second chance romance of a guy and a girl who grew up going to like vacation homes that were right next door to each other. So you kind of got the past and present of the summers they were together and like their young romance days, and then also when they are back as adults and like what's going on with that. Yeah, I do really enjoy her like writing style and how she writes. Okay, after that I read The House in the Cerulean Sea, another book that has been on my TBR for so long. I have heard like nothing but rave reviews about this, and I was really on like a quest to have like as many 5-star reads in a month as I could, but this was not one for me. And it feels like I'm the only person who is not obsessed with this book, but it just did not work for me. It just wasn't my cup of tea, and I felt like the main character, Linus, was just like an insufferable character in like a way that I could not enjoy it. And like there was just like a lot of issues with the plot and like with the story that I just thought were like so silly that I don't know. But if you guys don't know what this is about, it's kind of fantasy-esque. It's about this orphanage that houses magical children, because in this story there are like regular humans and there are like magical humans, and they kind of like keep them separated. Linus is a social worker who kind of polices these orphanages. So he gets sent to this one full of like these really intensely magical beings, ends up falling in love with all of these people and whatever. I just didn't like it. I did like the like magical children characters. I thought that they were fun, but if anything, a lot of it just felt like a little bit overdone for me. I gave it a 2 out of 5. It is so highly rated on Goodreads. It's got a 4.4 star rating out of almost 500,000 reviews. So don't let my bad review put you off of it, like, because clearly people like it, but for some reason I just didn't. After that, I read another Catherine Center because, like I said, I was just so obsessed with that first one. I read her newest release, which is called The Bodyguard. This is about a girl who is a bodyguard. She's an executive protection agent, and she basically is hired to be the protective agent for this guy, Jack, who is basically just like a superstar actor. He has like some crazy stalkers and stuff, and so he needs a bodyguard, but they choose her and they end up having to get into this fake dating relationship so that people don't know that she is his bodyguard. So it's a fake dating romance between like one of us is famous type of thing. This was really cute though, and it was like laugh out loud funny. That's the other thing about this author. Like I'm like a Catherine Center stan now, but she's so funny and her writing is so funny. She does banter really well. So yeah, there were parts of this where I was like laughing out loud. Like I loved the characters. The only thing with this one is I felt like the romance kind of went like from 0 to 100 over the course of 2 pages. Like I would have liked a little bit more buildup and more angst and like more banter between the characters before like they just went from like fake dating to like real dating. But this one, there was like a little too much saying and not showing, if that makes sense. Generally still really liked it. There were a few things that the main male character said in this one that I really didn't like, but it kind of goes back to what I was saying about her other book, where she makes these characters like realistic people, where like they don't always say the right thing and they are like flawed people, and he was a little flawed. He was maybe a little too flawed for my taste, but still a really good book. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. After that, I listened to The Music of Bees because I was really trying to find some more like general fiction, like cozy, wholesome books, kind of like Remarkably Bright Creatures and like Lessons in Chemistry. Like was trying to find more books with that vibe, and this one was recommended, and I really liked this one too. It was such a wholesome book. It's about this woman, Alice. She's recently widowed and she's also a beekeeper. She ends up needing help to help her out with all these bees. So she hires this young guy, Harry, who has like so much social anxiety. He's so nervous. He has a really hard time being himself and getting to know people, and he's having all of his own problems. And then she also ends up kind of taking on this other kid, Jake, who is having all of his own issues because he is recently a quadriplegic. He ended up getting in this horrible accident right before graduating high school, where he is now wheelchair bound and he is getting used to his new body and his new existence, and he's having like a horrible time. And the 3 of these people, who are all just like going through these hard things, kind of end up all working together on this bee farm, and it was just so good. It was just a heartwarming book, and I really liked it. The way that they all like come together and are like helping each other, and it's just such an unlikely group of people to like get together. I just loved it. I gave that one a 4 out of 5. Okay, after that I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. I've been waiting for it for a long time. I've been in line for it on my Libby app since it came out. It took so long for it to be my turn to like read this book. Yeah, I wanted so badly to give this one 5 stars. I was really hoping it was gonna be like an amazing reading experience for me, but it just kind of fell a little bit flat for me, unfortunately. This is a second chance romance, like a relationship in distress romance, basically, because it's about this couple who are in this big friend group. There's like 6 of them, and they've been this group of best friends since college. It's about Harriet and Wynne, and they have basically, I think they've been together for like 10 years or something. They broke up but have not told anybody in their friend group yet, and it's been like 5 months of them being broken up and not speaking to each other at all, and they all end up going on this annual vacation that they always go on together, even though they're broken up there are like certain circumstances that make them pretend to still be together for the sake of this trip. So after not speaking to each other and like going through this rough breakup, they are like suddenly staying in the same room and pretending to be together again. The problem that I had with this book is that like from the very beginning of the book, they tell you that Wynn breaks up with her in this like 4-minute phone conversation and basically just like breaks her heart. And you don't know why until basically like the very end of the book. As a reader, I could not like him as a character knowing that. And so like the whole book, she's like so drawn back to him and she's like, I miss him so much. And she's like basically like simping after him the whole book. But for me, I'm like, I hate that guy. He broke up with you over a 4-minute phone call after you've been together for 10 years. Like, fuck that guy. And so it makes for like a very frustrating reading experience when you can't understand why the main character is like acting the way they are. And that was like basically my biggest complaint with it, if you know what I mean. Because yeah, like the whole book, he's just like coming across as this like asshole who broke up with her, and he's like not like acting remorseful. And she's just like in her head, like thinking about, oh, how good he looks and how much she misses him. And I'm like, ew, like we don't like boys who don't like us. Like, what are you talking about? I will say this was Emily Henry's best writing I have ever read by her. Like you can tell that she has grown so much as a writer and she really like put it all into this book. Like the writing in this book was phenomenal, but it was just like the story that didn't quite work for me. Like this is all spoilers. Basically this whole review is spoilers, sorry. Like at the very end of the book, because she's a doctor, like she's talked about multiple times in the book how she has like hundreds of thousands of dollars of school debt that she's got into to become a doctor, and then she just like walks away from her career to work at a pottery studio at the end. And I'm like, I felt like that was maybe just a little bit too ridiculous of an ending to be like, oh, I'm like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, but like I'm gonna go work part-time at this pottery studio. Like I guess follow your dreams, but also like that was like the final straw for me at that part. It still had all of the amazing Emily Henry banter and it was like funny. The writing, like I said, was like beautiful, wonderful writing. After that I read The Summer Proposal. I think I got this as a recommendation from Beach Reads and Bubbly on Instagram. Was like raving about this book and it was cute. It was like a 2.5 star read for me. It was like a very good, like kind of mindless romance where you don't have to like think too hard. It's just like an easy book to read, but also it was like immediately forgettable. Like I'm already like, what was this book about? What is this girl's name? Tell me her name. Okay, it doesn't have her name in the description, so I cannot remember what this girl's name is, but basically her fiance decides that he's gonna go teach in London for like 18 months and told her like, I want to stay together, but I want to have an open relationship so that I can smash while I'm away in Europe. And she's kind of like, whoa, okay. They decide to stay together and have their open relationship or whatever. And she ends up meeting this guy in passing at a bar named Max, who she's like agrees to start casually dating. Then come to find out he's a famous hockey player and she's like, what? She is in a relationship and he is like moving away at the end of the summer. So they're like, we're not gonna have anything serious. We're just going to have like a fun casual summer fling and then go our separate ways, which obviously is not gonna work. Like I said, it was cute but forgettable. The only thing that I kept thinking the entire time I was reading this book was like, people do not talk like this. So much of the dialogue between characters was so cringy and just so unrealistic. People don't talk like this. It just felt like kind of silly to read. Last book of the month is another thriller that I listened to on audio, The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This book was bananas and not in a good way. This book took such a wild turn that I was not expecting. That was just so stupid and like ridiculous. Also, I listened to this as an audiobook and they picked a horrible narrator for this book. I think the main character in this book is supposed to be like 35, and the woman who narrated this, I think I looked it up and she's in like her 70s or something, and she sounds like it. Like she has a complete grandma voice, which there is a time and a place for it, but it did not work in this book. The voice just was so wrong for the character. But it's basically about this actress. Her husband recently passed away and she is definitely an alcoholic and she's having a hard time existing in her like regular life. And so she ends up going to her family's lake house so that she can kind of recover outside of the public eye, because she's had a lot of like really bad drunk tabloid appearances. There's like a bunch of other houses at this lake who rich famous people also live in, and the one across the lake from her, there is a couple in that house, and she is like watching them with binoculars, watching the house across the lake, and there is like a domestic thing going on between them. And the wife across the lake goes missing, and she's like, where is she? I feel like it started off really strong and it had such a good idea, but like the twist is so absurd. Spoiler alert, if you don't want to know it, skip ahead, but literally it goes paranormal. Like possession, like the wife is possessed by the actress's dead husband, and it takes such a freaking weird turn. It was so bad. I was rolling my eyes so hard. Like it did not work for me. I gave it one a 2 out of 5, and those are all of the books that I read this month. So if you have read any of the books that I talked about, please leave your thoughts on them in the comments so I can see what you guys thought. Or if you have any books that you think that I should add to my TBR, let me know down below also. But yeah, that is all I have for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Instagram. And I will see you guys all in my next video.